In 2015, a paper published by two scientists at the University of California, Santa Cruz, made some waves in the scientific community. In it, they outlined how our planet could break apart into two separate pieces, which would then go on to smash into each other over and over again for millennia. It's not exactly what you'd call a likely scenario, but there are instances in our planet's past where something similar to this has happened. So, just for fun, let's imagine that it were to happen today. What would happen if the Earth split in two? We can start out with some simple geography. The Pacific Ocean is getting bigger. Over the last 140 million years, it's grown by about 7% and is expected to continue growing. On average, it widens by around 6 centimeters per year. The reason why it's getting bigger is because the seafloor between the Americas and the rest of the continents is spreading. New crust is created at mid-ocean ridges where magma spills out from deep within the Earth and cools, creating new oceanic crust. And because there's more room to spread out on either side of the ridge, the seafloor gradually moves away. This process is driven by convection currents in the mantle. Warm material rises up, pushing aside cooler material before it eventually becomes cool enough to sink back down and start the cycle again. The Atlantic Ocean, on the other hand, is slowly but surely getting smaller. One plate, the denser one, is sliding beneath the other. The African and Eurasian plates are colliding with the North American plate, and the denser oceanic crust is getting pulled down into the mantle. Instead, the intense heat and pressure hundreds of kilometers below the surface will cause the rock to melt and become part of the mantle. As the seafloor gets dragged down, it adds new material to the semi-molten zone known as the asthenosphere. The Atlantic has been shrinking by around 2 centimeters per year over the last 140 million years. Now, these are very slow rates of change. We won't see any significant difference during our lifetimes. But over millions of years, these changes can add up. About 335 million years ago, the supercontinent Pangaea began to break apart. Similar processes to those happening in the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans today caused it to crack first into Laurasia and Gondwana and eventually into the arrangement we have now. If these same processes were to somehow speed up dramatically, it could cause our planet to split apart in a different configuration. In their paper, the authors imagined a future where the Pacific Ocean gets so big that it starts encroaching on land masses in Asia and the Americas. They hypothesized that as the eastern edge of Asia started to get submerged, the weight of all that water would cause the crust to buckle and subduct. Now, since the western coast of the Americas would be experiencing more spreading than subduction, the east would be spreading apart while the west would be coming together. Eventually, the eastern part of North America would be pulled completely free of the continent and the Atlantic Ocean would cease to exist. The eastern half of the globe would consist of a new supercontinent flanked by the Pacific Ocean and a gigantic inland sea. But wait, we haven't accounted for the other half yet. What happened to the rest of the world? Well, the western part of the Americas would continue spreading until the eastern edge of Australia and the western edge of Antarctica collided. At this point, we're no longer talking about gradual spreading or subduction. This would be a massive collision. All of the energy that built up along the edge of these land masses would be released in an instant. There would be earthquakes unlike anything we've ever experienced. The crust would crumple and fold in on itself, forming huge mountains and deep valleys. This would also release a tremendous amount of heat into the atmosphere. And once this initial collision occurred, our planet would never be the same. The centers of both land masses would begin to spread apart, reforming an ocean. The cycle would then start anew. The eastern supercontinent would eventually split apart again, causing it to collide with the western supercontinent a second time, and then a third and a fourth and a fifth. The Earth would continue splitting apart, reassembling, splitting apart, reassembling for millions and millions of years. Around 750 million years ago, our planet did split apart, but not quite like this. Evidence of this event comes from rocks found in Western Australia. They were formed when two tectonic plates collided. Prior to the collision, both plates had been spreading apart and had an ocean between them. But as they came together, the eastern plate began to subduct under the western one. The minerals in the seafloor melted and became part of the mantle, creating what's known as a magmatic arc. These rocks are between 800 and 900 million years old, but the fact that they were formed through subduction means that the seafloor that was destroyed likely formed around 800 or 900 million years before that, meaning that the Earth was likely whole around 1 billion years ago. But it's important to remember that even though these processes are incredibly powerful, the Earth is mostly held together by gravity. The gravitational attraction between the crust and the mantle is stronger than the tectonic forces that try to pull it apart. So while the Earth may have been split into multiple pieces in the past, we probably don't have to worry about it happening anytime soon. And besides, there are much more pressing issues to worry about. So rather than worrying about the Earth splitting into, we should probably focus on taking care of the only one we have. So do you think the Earth would split in two? Let us know in the comments. Also, thank you for watching this episode.